Hello once again, Monster Hobbies Model Car Garage Mechanics. Are you ready for another unboxing video? Well, today we have video number 3 in our 3-part series examining the 57 Ford model kits that are out there. And we've got an old favorite. This is AMT Ertl's 1957 Ford Fairlane 500. Now this model kit has been out for many years, going all the way back to the 60s. This one is a 90s or maybe early 2000 entry, and AMT has re-released this one in our recent times, and the new box looks like this. So before we begin unboxing this, I just want to let you know that I've got a new series for beginners. I've got 2 videos out now. The first one is in determining which model skill level is correct for you, and the second one is an expose on which tools you'll need in order to start building model cars. So if you haven't seen those, go and check them out in our new playlist designed specifically for beginners, where hopefully all your questions will be asked. Now, I will be making advanced videos and moderate videos later on, but for now, that's what I've got. So don't forget to like, subscribe, and share to this channel if you enjoy this type of content. And without further ado, let's go down to the bench and see what's in the box. All right, here we go, all the way back to Ford's showroom for 1957 with AMT Ertl's 1957 Ford Fairlane 500. This is a skill level 2 model kit, molded in popular 1/25th scale, and all available for you. This version of the AMT 57 Ford Fairlane came out in 1993. And on this side of the box, we read the model kit specifications for the 57 Ford Fairlane 500. The type is a 2-door front engine rear-wheel drive. Engine 312 cubic inch, 245 horsepower, 4-barrel V8. Options for 93. New billet-style air cleaner and finned valve covers. Also includes exhaust headers and Paxton supercharger assembly. Transmission is the Ford-O-Matic. Wheels and tires, stock wheel covers, Firestone tires. Options, new for 93, custom wheels, Firestone wide oval tires. Now these were new at the time. The first version of these came out in the AMT 1966 Ford Fairlane kit. Exterior options, bullet taillights, headlight housings, and front grille. Interior options, new tilt-style steering column and street steering wheel, auto-trans floor shifter, front bucket seats, and twin rear seats. Parts, over 120 parts, full-color decals, paint and cement not included. Now as we move the box across, you see this wonderful 1990s purple-painted Ford for 57, and it's got shaved door handles, and they remove the bottom portion of the trim from the stock version, makes it look nice and slick and custom for the times. On this side of the box, we see the stock version with a red body with black sides and a black top, which looks really sleek. And over here we have the 1993 custom Fairlane with optional parts. And like I was saying, okay, they didn't remove the bottom portion. I'm stand corrected. They actually removed the top portion of the trim to give it this nice thin swish for chrome, and they painted over the grille, so it's all pretty sleek. This was the style back in the 90s. And if we move the box over, you'll see another version of the stock kit, white car with blue sides and blue top, with opening hood and doors. They also get posable steering in this one, and at one point in time, this Ford was part of the Styline series, which gave you custom back end and front end. Now, originally this model kit came out around 1963 from AMT in Troy, Michigan. So this is like right at the beginning of the company. And it was a 3-in-1 trophy series, which you could build stock, custom, or stylized. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you these instructions as a bonus at the end of this video. So please stay tuned to the end, then go a little bit beyond, and I'll show you these. And there's some really cool stuff. George Barris is on the back of this with some ideas, and you can see what this kit originally was way, way back when it first came out. So now, Ford fans, we will actually take a look at AMT Ertl's 1993 edition of this kit and look at those modern parts of that time period and see exactly how cool they look. So let's take the lid off this great model kit, and right away we have the instruction sheet saying, "Hello, how are you?" Inside I've got the decals, so that'll be later in the video. I like to hold those till the end. Now here we've got a bag full of all our plastic parts. As you can see, the engine is molded in gray, and actually all the plastic is molded in gray and looking pretty good. So right here we've got our chrome parts tree. Now we've got a choice of the factory stock hubcaps or the, I guess, billeted style wheels, maybe Boyd Coddington inspired. Now, because this is an older kit, I've actually put these parts in Ziploc bags to keep them from getting scratched. But here we have our taillights. Now you'll notice these boomerangs. They're actually Edsel pieces that are left over from the original Styline kit, and we'll take a look at that when we look at those instructions at the end of the video. And here we've got our glass and all the wonderful lights in here. Got quad headlights and little clear bullets, as well as the regular windows and side vent or no drafts windows. Then we've got tires, so these are stock ones, and then we've got those Firestone wide oval ones, which is interesting because this is not really a 90s tire. This is more of a 60s tire. And then there's some metal axles in the bottom. So I'll clear all of this out of the way, and then we'll crack open the current instructions and take a look at those. Here we have our 57 Ford Fairlane 500 instructions from AMT Ertl. And we've got a nice rear three-quarter shot of the car. And did you know that in 1957, the Ford was all new, and it actually outsold the 57 Chevy? So there's a little bit of trivia for you. So these instructions flip out, and we'll take a look at that right now. As we open the instruction sheet, we get this wonderful history of the 57 Ford and how it was designed to compete against Chevrolet back in the day, as well as the engine options and many of the different types of Fords that were in the lineup. Again, a really wonderful read, and what I think I'll do is try to type this out and include it in the description box of this video so that you can read it. As we further open up the instruction sheet, you'll get this part here that is the important section, saying before you begin to assemble your model kit, study the instructions carefully. This will help you familiarize yourself with the part locations as you proceed. Prior to cementing parts together, be sure to test fit them in order to assure proper alignment and also to check for excess flash that may occur along parting lines. Use a sharp hobby knife or file to remove flash if necessary. If you wish to paint your model, various sub-assemblies and components should be painted before any parts are attached. During assembly, you may note that the recommended color is stated after the part name, so that's always good. This model kit is molded from the finest high-impact styrene plastic. Use only paints and cement which are specifically formulated for styrene. So that would be your tester's red tube cement or your tester's liquid glue. You can also use the Tamiya brand cements, but make sure that any brand that you use is formulated for styrene. Read all labels and warnings carefully. Because the cement will only adhere to bare plastic, it is necessary to remove any paint or plating from the area to which the cement is to be applied. So these are words of wisdom to build your model, both for beginners, advanced, and senior builders. Always plastic to plastic contact. Over here we have recommended tools, hobby knives, tweezers, and a brush. It says we recommend the use of a liquid polystyrene cement. Apply with a fine brush. Use sparingly or a sloppy job will result. Alright, and then it's got building tips for the advanced modelers, so we won't get into that for now. I just wanted to bring this part up for those that are beginning. At the Monster Hobbies Model Car Garage, we build models, not toys. So always make sure that you take your time, you clean up the parts to make them look realistic, and you allow paint to dry so you don't put fingerprints in it. So, to start with, I know I'm moving the instruction sheet here. We have step 1, the sub-assembly of the engine. So we have our right and left hand side engine block, our transmission. We've also got the starter molded in place on this one, as opposed to the skill level 3 kits from Monogram Revell. We've got our oil pan going on here. We've got our front timing chain cover that includes the water pump molded on, as well as the oil filler tube. And there it's gloss black at the top, just like it said. It would tell you what the colors are. Gloss black for the starter. We've got our right and left hand side cylinder heads and the intake manifold. The valley cover on this one is actually the top of the engine block, so that gets covered by the intake manifold. And out back we have the distributor, which is in gloss black. Here we have the stock final assembly. So we've got our plated valve covers left and right. We've got our air cleaner. Now this is a one piece. The carburetor is a one piece as opposed to the Revell Monogram kit. And here we have our right and left hand side exhaust manifolds, which it says to paint steel. We've got our generator down here, our fan belts and pulleys, and then our fan. And as you can see, everything is labeled. Now it does say that the fan is plated, but in the real car, I don't think it is. You'll have to take a look at real photos of this Ford engine in order to see what's going on. However, remember on the Revell Monogram kits how this is a decal? Well, on this model, the decal is actually raised on the valve covers. Now, one thing, if you don't want that and you have the decal sheet from the Monogram kit, you could always sand this smooth right in there and take off the plating, maybe replate it again with a Mol-Tool pen, or paint these, I do believe they were black, and then use the decal from the Monogram kit. So again, always keep your spare parts, even your decals, because you never know where they're going to come in handy. Now here we have the custom engine. Now this one has the supercharger on it. Now it is a factory stock engine. Even though it's got these components in it, there was the option of the Paxton supercharger. Some of the Thunderbirds had it as well. And here we have Thunderbird valve covers, which are on here. We've got the pressure box, which is gloss black. We've got the Paxton supercharger, and then the supercharger intake tube down here. So it's going to be sucking in air from this tube and then bringing it into the pressure box and sending it down through the manifold. Now here we have these really cool looking racing exhaust manifolds. We also have our generator, fan belt and pulley, but this one has the extension for the supercharger, and we also have our fan. Now having looked at that engine, you'll notice that AMT did not have the pressure box molded correctly. They show it as a great big box with the tube out the side and the whole deal. Now I don't know if that was an experimental pressure box or if it's just AMT made a mistake. But this is how it looks in the actual car. And you'll notice this little round circle on the top with a hose going into this side. And then there's a flex hose out here. Now, the Del Rio wagon had this as an optional part, but it said not to use it. So if you're going to build this Ford correctly, and you do have the other two, I would suggest swapping this out for that square pressure box of the original AMT kit. And now we have our new for the 90s version of this engine. And what we have here is the billet air cleaner. And this one is really actually a pretty cool air cleaner. It's going on to the carburetor, 4-barrel carburetor. You paint that gold. You got your T-bird valve covers on here, as well as these really cool exhaust manifolds. Got our generator down below with the fan belts and pulleys from the stock version, as well as the fan. So again, this would end up looking pretty cool as the third option of an engine build for this kit. Next we'll get into the wheel assembly. Now this actually goes across the instruction sheet that way, so the custom side is over there. But what we have here is the stock version, and this is the wheels with the really cool Ford hubcaps in here. These are the top of the line hubcaps for the era. And then we have our Firestone Supreme tires here. And there's an inner front brake backing plate ring which goes in through the inner wheel half. Now this all sandwiches together, and you do that twice for your front wheels. Front wheels have the pin at the back. On the rear, they have a hole in the back, but it's basically the same sandwich. The only thing that changes is the backing plate and the front plate. So you want to make sure you got two of those. And then in here it says to paint this white. Now what I use is like a water-based acrylic paint. You can also use latex in there, but it can't be enamel because the weird rubber that these tires are molded in, it has a reaction with enamel paints. And so what happens there is that it never dries. It stays sticky. I've got some that are 30 years old that are still sticky because it just never dried. Now, we're going to get into the custom wheels in a minute, but this is right above them. So the custom wheels have a big piece of rubber in the middle. You have to take your hobby blade and go around that and cut that center out, and then they're ready to mount onto your car. Now, the 1990s was a really cool time in the hobby industry because it was almost like the reawakening. So we were coming out of the dark days of the 70s and 80s for model kits, except for the TV cars in the 70s and 80s. They did put in the effort for those. But in the 90s, there was a new challenge. Now, Tamiya of Japan were making a lot of good model kits, as was Hasegawa and Fujimi and those guys. And AMT, Revell, and Monogram were starting to lose market share because people wanted better kits. So in this time period, AMT revived a lot of their older kits and came up with brand new ones, which are really cool, like the Edsel and the 62 Thunderbird and those ones, really excellent kits. But in the meantime, they started to dress up their older kits, like this one, with popular items at the time. Now, these cool wheels that are in here, I do believe they're billeted ones, but they are directional spoked. They came out. We got new Firestone wide oval Super Sport tires, and there's a lot of other cool seats and features in this kit that came out at this time period, but then under round two, they've disappeared, which is kind of bad because it would be good to actually have all these pieces in here from the 90s, as well as all those original pieces. So if you're from AMT, please open up all those ports in your mold and dump a lot of plastic in there and give us 9 million parts, because we'd really love that. All right, carrying on with the model. So we've got the new wheels going into the new tires with the old front brake and backing plate with the pin going up front. You're making two of these, and the inner wheel half. So all this is going to rotate around in here on that wheel to get you going. And then out at the back, we also have these wheels, and then the tires, and the inner wheel half. Now, these directional tires, you got to make sure that the blades are going the same way on the front and the back. So there's a right and a left hand side to these, so make sure that you get that right on the kit. Otherwise, one wheel will be rotating backwards as you're rolling forward, and the other will be rolling in the right direction. Now we get into the chassis assembly, and we're going to start with the suspension. Now, there are a lot of chrome parts in this, and you'll see when we take a look at the parts tree that really shouldn't be chrome, but they're on the parts tree there. So one of those is the front suspension piece, so strip the chrome and paint it gloss black. So here we have the lower A arms. Now, this is the only one of the three Fords that has posable steering. So here we've got the left spindle and the right spindle. Now it says paint it gloss black and do not cement. Those all sandwich in here, and then we've got our tie rod, which goes into these two little arms that are sticking out. And then we have our chassis underneath with the exhaust pipes molded in. So you're going to have to paint this gloss black, then go in with your brush and paint the exhaust. Got a two-piece differential with the springs molded in place, and the shocks will go up there underneath the U-bolt plate. So that's our entire chassis. Very simple to put together as compared with the Monogram kit, but a lot of paint detail has to go in here before you can assemble the whole thing. Panel 6 shows our engine and wheel assembly. So here you've got your choice of either using the stock or the custom wheel. Again, we've got it there. Now remember, these are directional, so take a look at how you want them to spin and make sure you get them on the right sides. Now here we've got our assembled engine being glued into place. You need to slip the tips of the exhaust manifolds, or actually the pipes, into notches on this cross member, which will line up with the mufflers and exhaust that are molded in. And then here we've got a metal axle which slips through, and the rear wheels the metal axle goes into the holes. So here we've got stock, and there you've got custom. And then in between the two is the drive shaft. So you would actually, since this is glued down from the previous step, you would put the drive shaft in here first. Note that the narrow end is toward the back and the fatter end is up front, and then this will go into the back of the transmission as you're slipping the engine and gluing it down. Now, AMT made a little mistake with the instructions here. This should actually say interior assembly, but it says chassis assembly. The chassis, of course, is the undercarriage of the car. So what we have here is the interior, and you'll note that there's an open space here, and that's because the doors actually open, and there's panels that are separate for those. So what do we have here? Well, we've got an interior as a partial tub, and we've got our instrument panel, or dashboard, going in place. The pedals are molded into the floor on this one, as is a little floor mat there. We've got our rear view mirror, which goes in here. We've got a separate gear shift lever for the 3 on the tree for the stock steering column. And then we've got our steering wheel with the separate chrome-plated horn ring, which glues into here. Now here we've got the 2-piece front bench seat and a single-piece rear bench seat, which glues into place. So this is a really good-looking stock interior once you get it all assembled. Now, if you want a new for 1993 interior in here, these are all the cool parts that were available at the time. So what we have is, again, that bucket, because that's a universal piece, the universal instrument panel. Here we have some gauges, which I do believe are from the 60s, actually. We've got our rear view mirror up here, but this is for the 90s. So we've got a lower console and a speed shifter lever, and that would all go together. We've got a steering column with the tilt steering up top with a lever for it there. And then we have a billeted steering wheel. We've got these really cool Recaro type bucket seats and a bench seat that matches. Now this piece is from the original Trophy series, and this is the stuffed puppy, because back in the day, stuffed animals and all these really cool kooky displays were all used in the car shows of the 60s. So AMT just kept this as one of the optional pieces. Here we have step 8, which is the body assembly, and here you can see the left and right hand side doors being attached onto the body, and they do have molded on hood hinges, so you got to make sure you get all the flash out of that so that it operates nicely. And there's little pins on here. Make sure you keep them because they go into the hinge supports down here. So what it's showing here is the doors go in through these little slots on the body, and then the hinge support will glue right here with the curves holding those 2 pins. So that's how the doors open. And then it shows painting for the two-tone, primary body color up here, and then the darker colors there. Here we have the taillight bezels going in, much like the monogram kits. We've got our rear window and front window. Now, unfortunately, these are not sunken in like the later monogram kits, because back at this time period in the 60s, nobody actually thought of doing that. But that's okay. So anyway, there's our doors and the body. Now, in some instructions, you'll see where it'll say, keep a roll of masking tape. Some people like to hook these doors on and then tape them inside, like in the back here, so that they don't open. And then they paint the whole body like that. They even would put the hood on, maybe, and paint that, so that the paint color is consistent over the whole model. Now, I've actually never done that because I find that usually when I spray paint, everything looks consistent at the end anyway. But if you believe in that theory, then go ahead and tape your doors on before you paint it. Now, here is the second part of our sub-assembly. So once the body is together, you can glue on the interior door panel left and right. There's also the vent windows, which go in here. So if you've painted it, you'll need to scrape a little bit of the chrome or the paint from inside these little vent window frames. Just a little bit, and then with your brush, actually you're going to take the window, press it in here, make sure everything fits, and then with that glue on your brush, you go around this edge inside the frame, and the capillary action will go around there with the glue, And just be careful not to get a thumbprint on there and the glue runs underneath it. But that's the way to glue in the windows with your liquid glue. After you've done that, the assembled interior will pop up into place. There are some little pins in the body, which we'll see where these tabs go in. And then there's a little bit here which glues under the firewall. Subassembly C shows all the details which are going in underneath the hood. So again, we have the upper part of the radiator tank going on there. We've got our heater motor, which will go in here on the firewall. It is saying to paint this area semi-gloss black, but actually, sometimes AMT gets these things wrong. So make sure that you research the real car on the internet before painting in here any other color that isn't body color, just as a heads up. Here we have our hood with the hood ornament being glued in place, and again, like the other two kits, you have to put one of the pins of the hood in the hole first, and then snake the other one in until it goes click, and then you'll have the opening hood. Now this is where the kit gets to be a bit more cool than your standard monogram kit. So what we have are a couple of the custom pieces from the original model, and for us up here in Canada, we actually have the Mercury Meteor front grille in here. Although it's not the complete grille, the complete stock Mercury grille for Canada had wraparound side pieces, much like the Edsel does. And unfortunately, they didn't mold those side pieces in here so that we could build a proper Canadian version of this car. Also, the side trim is different on the Mercury Meteor than it is on the Ford Fairlane. So actually what I'll do is I'll find a picture and I'll post it up here so you can see the difference. Now that you've seen the difference between the two cars, we can get into this. So here we have our headlight lenses. So we've got the lens and we've got the bezel right here, but you can also add in this one, which eliminates that big bezel that sticks way out like a, fisheye or something, and replaces it with more of a Frenched style, where the bezel actually, the chrome beauty ring of the bezel is sitting out here, and then the light is pretty much flush to the body opening for the headlights. It doesn't stick out, Now here we have our grille. This one is not opened in the back, it's solid. And again, like I was saying, the Mercury Meteor grille from Canada with the big V and the star in there. Now, the Americans loved taking this grille and customizing it into this car because the Canadian one was a far nicer looking grille than the American one, which is pretty basic. Here we have the front splash apron. This goes between the, well, it actually has the bumper horns molded on it. But this is a cover so that you don't see the horns, following the bumper. So there's our front bumper, which again wraps around, license plate bracket, and a decal for the license plate. Now, your assembled body will snap onto the chassis. You just got to pull it out a little bit on the sides and it'll pop in there. And then try to figure out where the glue attachment points are so you can glue this whole thing as one piece. So here we have the final assembly for the rear, and we've got a few different taillights to choose from. We've got the stock taillight, which is molded in clear red, or the custom taillight, which is also clear red, but these are flat pieces of lucite, which were pretty popular back in the day as a customizing trick. We also have the chrome custom taillight bezel, and then a little bullet back here, which is another one of the custom features of the day. We got our license plate bracket and then the license plate decal itself, the rear splash pan, and the rear bumper. And all that will go on there and make this kit look nice. Now, one thing you may be wondering, just pulling this down one last time, why did Canada have a Mercury Meteor? Well, the answer is actually quite simple. Back in the 50s, there was a tariff on American cars going into Canada. So what the Canadians did was that they had plants up in Canada to make their own cars, like Ford and Chevy and that sort of thing. But what they did was that they made their own Canadian versions of American cars so that they could get around the tariffs of that time period. So much like today with the new tariffs that have come in, Canada found a way around it back in the 50s by creating their own cars. So that's why we have the Mercury Mediator, the Mercury Montcalm, the Pontiac Laurentian, the Pontiac Parisienne, and then we've also got the Acadian and the Beaumont. And Dodges. What Dodge did was they used the Dodge back end of the car, or the Plymouth back end of the car, and they put the Dodge end, the front end, on there. So we have Plodges up in Canada. So now that you have a little bit of Canadian car history, you too could take off to the Great White North. Take off. It's a beauty way to go. Take off. All right, anyway. So here we have some painting detail. The 57 Ford Fairlane was available with either a monotone or two-tone exterior painting scheme. The colors listed here are the names of the Ford Motor Company used in 1957. Most auto parts dealers can provide help in mixing paints to match the original specifications. However, the plastic should be properly primed when using authentic auto body paint. The chart below lists the two-tone colors available. The first exterior color is the primary color. When painting a two-tone body, remember it is best to paint the lighter shade first, and then mask that all off and paint the darker shade underneath. So here we have the single-tone and exterior colors: Raven Black, Dresden Blue, Star Mist Blue, Colonial White, Cumberland Green, Willow Green, Silver Mocha, Doeskin Tan, Gunmetal Gray, Woodsmoke Gray, Flame Red. And then for the interior, we've got, if you had cloth or vinyl, or actually, it would be both, so you'll have to do your research which one is vinyl, which one is cloth on the door panels. So there might be cloth in the middle of the door panel or on the middle of the seat, but the bottom of the seat would be vinyl, that kind of thing. So we have dark blue and medium blue, and then it shows you with the dots which exterior color goes with which interior. So Dresden Blue, you'd have dark blue and medium blue. You'd have that in the Star Mist Blue. A Colonial White car would have a blue interior. And then here we've got medium green and light green, which is going on Colonial White, Cumberland Green, and Willow Green. And then here we've got dark gray and light gray. So you got Raven Black, Colonial White. Actually, Colonial White has them all. Silver Mocha and Doeskin Tan. Maybe I missed a few here. But anyway, this is how it all goes. And then with the two-tone, you'll have Raven Black with Colonial White. So Colonial White being the body, and then Raven Black would be the sides and the roof. Dresden Blue and Star Mist Blue, Colonial White, Cumberland Green, Willow Green, Cumberland Green, Colonial White, Willow Green and Colonial White, Gunmetal Gray and Woodsmoke Gray, Gunmetal Gray and Colonial White, Woodsmoke Gray and Colonial White, Silver Mocha, Doeskin Tan, Silver Mocha and Colonial Cream, Silver Mocha, Inca Gold, Doeskin Tan, Colonial White, Flame Red, Colonial White, Inca Gold and Colonial White, Coral Sand and Colonial White, and Dresden Blue with Colonial White. And then here's all the interior colors that go with those. So, I'll ask you this question. How are you going to paint your model? Two-tone or single-tone? Let me know down in the comments below. Now here we have our 1957 Ford Fairlane 500 body from AMT, of course being the most deluxe Ford out of all of them, and the oldest model kit of a 57 Ford, basically, unless there's something a little earlier, but maybe in 1/25th scale. So what we have here is a mold that has been in production since around 1963. So there is quite a bit of flash and mold seam lines. So we've got one that's coming up around the front here, goes across the top of these chrome spears, comes up over the windshield frame, and then picks up here, goes along the drip rail molding, comes across here somehow, and then there's a little bit down here that goes across and comes out here, and then it drops in the back. We'll take a look at that in a second. But as you can see, there is a lot of great detailing in here. It's got the inner fender wells as well as the firewall and the radiator support with the radiator molded in down there. Much like the Monogram and Revell kits, there is a tank that glues on the top of the radiator. There's a nice little pan in here, and that's where the hood is going to fit in. We have Fairlane script molded in right across the front there. You can't really see too well, but it is there. Oh yeah, that seam line comes over the brow and then rolls right into here. So there might be a little bit of filing and cleanup you'll need to partake in. You can see the mold line coming up under here. There are mold marks. There even looks like the front end was cut off at one point and kind of molded back in here because there's a lot of thick, looks like welds in the metal mold. So I'm not quite sure the history on what was going on with that. Maybe this had an open... No, it didn't. We'll take... At the end of the video, there's instructions for this kit from the very first issue. So we'll take a look at that, maybe can figure something out. There are some little areas here that you can drill out for sunken aerials back in the day. There's a little dotted line up in this wheel arch, so you can remove the... Well, actually open up the wheel arch in here for drag racing tires. That's one of the options. It also has the rib up top in the roof, but it is lacking the little inserted dome light that the Monogram kit has. It does have blocks, and that is for your windshield and back glass, so that it sits up nice on those blocks. It isn't flush fitted like the later kits, but that's okay. There is no pillar on the roof, but there is a bit of flash in here. You'll see the cross brace in there. That's to help support the mold, actually the body in the mold when it comes out, so that it doesn't flex in here. But you will have to remove them. You can see the nice curvature where the dashboard would be hooking up. And then our doors, which also have to get some flash out. Flash is pretty thick over this window. It's actually a flash window. You could make a panel van out of that. No, not really. The emblem is nicely molded in the back, as are where the license plate goes in. But you'll notice that this should be rounded to the body, and here it's sunken in quite a bit because of the seam line. Again, with a bit of care and cleanup, this will come out looking quite nice. So yeah, again, really excellent work for something that is many decades old. What I want to do here is compare the 357 Ford kits that I have. So there's the custom right there. Here we have the wagon, the Del Rio, and then we've got our Ford Fairlane 500. And you can see that the AMT kit is a little bit longer in the front than the other kits. Now, I'm not quite sure the reasoning on that, but you know, maybe this is a little more true. I think the later kits might be a little more true to the proportions. But again, I mean, it's not too bad, just a bit longer. So what can you say? Unless the wheelbase is a little bit longer. I'm not too sure. But let's take the wagon out of the way for a minute. So here you can see the difference in the trim. Just zip this up a bit. Here we go. So the custom has the split here for the window. That's actually a pillar for the door, is what I'm trying to say. The molding goes up there and swishes off here, whereas on the 500 it comes down into the door and comes out. It comes out as a double up here, so there's a bit of a color in there. Overall, though, it's not bad. It, you know, the two look like they could be, if you stripped all the Fairlane trim off, you would have one of these underneath, more or less. Pillarless hardtop version. You know, you look at the comparisons. You've got the emblem molded on the trunk lid, whereas here it's an inserted item. That's just getting in with the times. The back panel here comes across, kicks down under the license plate, whereas here it's flat across, but it is taken up on the little cover thing because they've molded it in there. You know, to cover the rear bumper horns. Like I was saying, up underneath, the newer kit has a dome light, whereas the old one doesn't. But again, they're two different manufacturers. However, the nice part is these kits match up bumper to bumper up front like that. So as I was saying earlier, they give you the Canadian grille option in the AMT kit. So if you ever want to build maybe some of the other Canadian Meteors that were available, this fits into the Monogram kit, Monogram Revell kit. So there is a lot of crossover that can be done, even with this on our Del Rio wagon. So we could build a bunch of Canadian ones with a little bit of good old Canadian ingenuity. And then here again you can see the difference from the Del Rio to the Fairlane on that trim. The Del Rio trim is kind of like the Fairlane trim, but it comes in here and goes out, whereas the Fairlane, it happens in the door. So again, quite a neat kit. Nice that we actually have all three Fords in all three classes. So you have the entry level up there with the custom, you got the mid-range with your Del Rio, and then you've got the top of the line down here with your Fairlane. So that's quite a good selection of Fords. You also have the pillar coupe, you've got the full wagon, and then you've got the top of the line pillarless coupe down here. So again, lots to choose from these three kits combined. Now we have the undercarriage of our Ford kit from AMT, and unlike the Revell and Monogram kits, this one actually has the chassis and the exhausts all molded in place. And as you can see, it is quite nice. There's a lot of bolt detail underneath here. I love the little bolts down the center of the mufflers. You got the clamps molded in place. Same with the little muffler off the back here. There's our gas tank. We also have the spare tire holder under here. There are some little cables and wires that are molded in place. Again, this is quite a wonderful looking little molding, and it wouldn't take too much to detail this with your paint brushes and whatnot. You can take your drill and drill out the tips of these exhaust pipes to make them look realistic. I've done it in the past. It's pretty easy. If you have a compass, you can always point the little pointer of the compass right there. You know, compass with a pencil, right? And then use that little sunken in point to set your tip of the drill bit. And then that'll give you a bit of a guide. There's little spots there for the shock absorbers. It's even got the molded piece of rubber for the differential to hit on. So when it goes over a bump, it's not crashing through. On the other side, there are some mold marks up here on the top of the A-pillars and up in this cradle. Actually, it's not too bad in the cradle. There are some there and there on the floor pan, which might affect the interior bucket. So just be careful of that. Overall, this is actually pretty good. There's no sink marks in the sides or anything. Just got to cut off this big piece of part tree, file it down, get it into shape. And we also have the holes in here for the posable front steering. On this parts tree is our interior tub, as well as our left and right steerable spindles. And I do believe you can flip these over to lower the ride height up front. There you got your pedals molded into place, and there's the little floor mat right in there. There's mold marks, but they're underneath the seats, so that's a bonus. You have the door handle. Now, as you can see, it's really crisp along the top, but it kind of peters out on the bottom, and that's just how this is molded. You got the little ashtrays in the armrests. They look really nice. There is some flash here. You can always tell flash when you rub your thumb over it, makes a sound. So these will have to be scraped and cleaned up in order to have the enough space in the doors here to make that all work out. Underneath there is the number 22 part number, so file that flat so it fits nice to your floor pan. And here's how it's going to go once it's on the floor pan. So you can see the nice tightness of it up around your wheel arch. It's a really good kit. I've got to actually finish more of these. You got this nice little flat area. I do believe it might attach into the body somehow too, but it fits nicely right there on these little rests. that are up in the wheel arches. So again, some really nice stuff there, nice molding, detailing, and of course make sure you clean everything down so this sits nice and flat and it's not being held up on any of the mold marks. Here we have our suspension components as well as some of the engine pieces. And the dog, where, oh where could my little dog be? Right there, on this parts tree. Actually, it's interesting because I thought this was chromed, but I guess it's not. Maybe it was at one time, because look, you'd have your gauges here, you'd have your exhaust manifolds. I don't know. Do any of you remember this being chrome plated, or am I just thinking of the 55 Chevy? No, I must be, because the dog was never chrome plated. I never had a chrome plated dog. Anyway, okay, enough of that. Here are the lower A-arms and the anti-sway bar. There's your steering right there, your steering linkages. We also have our gauges down here. I believe that looks like a generator. And then we've got that box that's for the blower. That's, I believe, pretty incorrect. It actually looks like a science experiment as opposed to the actual one that I showed earlier. We do have our exhaust manifolds, and these ones are cool because they actually say something on them. Just a second here. It looks like the firing order. Let's see. I got to take off my reading glasses. No, it's just a serial number, but it's on there, and it's really cool. You could highlight it up, paint these, what am I saying? Paint this with an iron kind of color, right? And then give it a black wash, and then dry brush over with a lighter version of iron right on there, and all those will pop up and look chef's kiss. I guess, I don't know. There's the stuffed dog. He's coming up pretty well on the camera. We got our shock absorbers. We got our two-piece differential with the springs molded in place, and our U-bolt ends on there. So again, pretty nice. Actually, underneath there's no interfering mold marks on that, so that's good. Yeah, overall, another great bit of classic AMT. This parts tree has quite a mixed bag of components. We have our front seat and our seat back. We also have the rear bench seat and the hood. And here we've got our steering column. We've got right and left hand side engine with the starter and the oil filter, and even looks like the oil pump all molded in place. There's our belt and pulley. We've got wheel backs going on here. We've got one-piece air cleaner, the intake manifold, the rear bumper with the brackets. And this goes under that license plate that I said was flat across the back. We also have the assembly for the Paxton blower. Paxton supercharger. We also have our cylinder heads. There's the carburetor, the water pump, and timing chain cover, as well as the oil filler spout. We've got a distributor, and I never really liked how this distributor looks. It's like a cone going up, and then the little points are so tiny up in there. I would recommend replacing this with a pre-wired distributor, or I might replace it with the one that Pete sent out. And then we've got the exhaust tube, or the air intake tube, I guess, for the blower box. But one thing that is cool is the texture on these seats. You don't need a decal here. They're right molded in. So it's just a matter of painting this. I guess you could put a decal on there and use some Solvaset, melt it right into place. It should look pretty cool. Flipping it over, there is a big square right here that's sunken down. That's so that you could cut this out and put a blower, like the GM style blower, you know, that, actually, hang on. I got one here. Something I was working on, but this kind of blower, and then you put the intake thing sticking out the top. This is a rusty old drag racing motor I was working on. Anyway, so that's what that hood thing is for. And then you'll notice some mold marks, but they seem to be in spots that are going to get covered over. You might just want to be careful on the ones on the wheel backs, because that's going to sandwich in with your wheel. But overall, again, really nice stuff here for a classic kit. Now here we've got a parts tree that's got some new for the 90s components. And these are really neat. I wish these would come back. Oh, how I wish they would come back. AMT, are you listening? All right, anyway. So here's the classic door panels. Well, of course, they're the modern ones too, if you really want to get into it, because they're the only door panels. But again, they have this nice texture down here. They've got the chrome bottom, the trim for the chrome on the bottom. That's what I'm trying to say. You've got full door handles in here. You've got the armrest with a little piece of chrome up front going around it. The only thing, if you really want this to be chef's kiss here, you would take your drill and drill a little, really tiny drill in here, and then use your knife to cut this out so that this actually becomes a handle for closing the door, if you know what I mean. There we've got our little hinge bits that go onto here, that go onto the body. There's that door trim that comes down in here and then would kick up on the fenders and arrow out up front. Look at these seats. These are new for the 90s, the Recaro type of seat. And then you got your steering wheel and the gear shift that's floor mounted goes into there, and your tilt steering column. Really nice stuff. There are some sink marks on the sides of these seats I didn't really notice before, but that's easily cured. You've got holes in the door. I believe those are for the spotlights, maybe, or something to that effect. There is mold marks here, and you will have to sand those down because that's going to be fitting up flush against the body, and you don't want any flash or anything to hold that out against, away from the body so your doors don't align. So be careful there. But overall, again, I really like how nice and crisp for all those years that this kit has been out there. It's again, really awesome. Here's our final gray parts tree for this video. And what we have, again, are the front bumper brackets with the cover on top of them. And then we've got these really noodly style exhaust manifolds. We've got our rear taillight bezels. We've got the front headlight bezels. We've got the battery in here, which is a 12 volt as opposed to some of the 6 volts of earlier kits, earlier cars. We have the stock steering wheel, and remember this is sunken down in here for that horn ring. We have the brake drums, and then we've got the heater motor and our dashboard. So let's just bring this up to our camera. We also have the Ertl stamp, and I don't know if when Round 2 re-releases this kit, if that is still in there. If you have one of the newer versions of this car, let me know in the comments down below. Did they wipe out the Ertl logo? Okay, so there's the dashboard up there. It's got all your radio and instrument panels, glove box, ashtray, and then the different knobs for doing things. You got your speedometer up in there. This is based off of what was going on in the 50s, later 50s for Ford. So Thunderbird kind of copied a dash like this on the 57 T-Bird. You got your battery. You can see all the little posts on there. Maybe. Okay, and then on the back, there are mold marks on the brakes. So make sure you sand these flat to get that nice contact in there. Sink marks underneath here. You can always fill that with some putty and sculpt it up to shape. But overall, again, nice components. Here we have the chrome parts tree. You'll notice that there's actually 2 missing wheels off of this. That's because I used them on that pink 1953 Ford that I built, and I needed 2 extras, so let's just pretend that those 2 are still on here. At any rate, what we have is the grille for the standard Ford, and then we've got the Canadian edition for the Mercury Meteor. We have our drive shaft here in chrome. These are rear tail lights for the custom. You would stick the red bullets through here. We've got that nice horn ring. We've got our fan. We have the hood emblem. Then we've got our valve covers, and they have Ford V-8 stamped right into them, or molded into them. We have these nice Thunderbird ones with the Thunderbird logo. They're finned. These are the new for the 90s wheels in here. And you can see they're directional. Do they have a right and left? I don't know. They might just be one direction. One Direction, like the band in the 90s. Then we have our rear view mirror. We've also got a nice Thunderbird air cleaner that matches the valve covers. That's a new for the 90s. Then we've got our rear bumper and our front bumper here, oil pan, expansion tank for the radiator, the Paxton supercharger, and then the chrome headlight bezels. So bringing this up to the camera, it's always nice. I like those full Ford hubcaps. They did look good on the 53 pickup. And then you can see the wheels are open in here. Again, really nice work. Look at that Thunderbird detailing on there. It's also got the paper element down on the sides. Some old marks underneath. We've got our Canadian grille. And I do have a spare. I've built this kit a few times, so lots of parts around for me anyway. There's our drive shaft, and I like how this looks like machine work here. It comes up. But look at the Ford script on those valve covers. Really beautiful stuff. AMT does some wonderful work, especially back in this vintage, considering, you know, how they made models back in the day. This thing is top notch. Blower looks good, even though that box is incorrect. I mean, I don't know. What can you say? There are some old buttons on the back here, which have to be sanded down in order for that to fit nice. Same as on the grills. Valve covers. Make sure you sand them onto a sanding paper block. But yeah, overall, this will all look good once you do a little bit of cleanup. Remember to scrape the chrome off when you're going to glue this on the engine block, as well as any paint on the engine block where they're going to connect. You want that plastic to plastic surface, the contact with the glue in between, because you want to build it as a real car in scale, as opposed to just assembling a toy. Here we have our glass components for our 57 Ford Fairlane, and a lot of these components are not listed in the instructions as to where they go, because some of these pieces, like these nice red boomerangs, are from an earlier edition of the kit. Now, if you do happen to stick around till the end, I will show you the instructions from that model, from the first issue from 1963, and you're going to be drooling over all the stuff there and wondering why AMT stopped putting the stuff in, and then you'll be begging AMT, round 2, to open up the chambers on that mold and bring us back those glorious parts of the past, especially since some of them are so versatile. Okay, so enough waxing about the future and the past here. What we have are clear bullets. We have 3 clear lamps on here. We've got our side windows. We have these little headlights, and this was for a quad headlight setup that's no longer available. And then we have our full headlights. We've got the front window and the rear glass. Then over here we've got these cool red boomerangs. We have 2 sets of bullets. We also have the flat disc plates, like I was saying, the lucite style. And then if I turn this over, you can see the actual Ford taillights for the stock version. Again, this is really wonderfully done. So let's move my hand there. Okay, so yeah, you can see just how cool this is. The boomerangs are actually got a little frame around the edges. And then we've got our headlights. They all have the crosshatch pattern in them. Little chrome backup bullets look nice. Again, some wonderful work, and this is the only 57 Ford that has custom features. So if you want to deck out your monogram and Revell kits, make sure you got 1 or 2 of these in your toolbox. Here's our tires for our model kit, and you actually get 2 sets because, of course, you got the custom wheels. Now, these ones here are Firestone Supreme tires, and these are quite an upgrade over the regular AMT Firestone tires that came in the 32 Fords and those types of kits. So we got Firestone Supreme on here. We've got the nice sidewall pattern, and these would be bias ply tires back in the day. The treads are the regular wraparound kind. They're not like the wiggly line kind or anything like that, but they are molded quite nice. They do go into the centers pretty well, you know, on your wheel rims. And they have Firestone Supreme up here, as well as a little Firestone logo down there. Again, really nice. And you can actually paint in here with a white wall. It all goes together beautifully. I've done it in the past. These are new for the 90s. These are Firestone wide oval tires. They originally came in the very first upgraded kit, which was the 1966 Ford Fairlane. I do believe I have an unboxing of that on this channel. It's been a while. But they have nice lettering on them. The only downfall is that you have to cut this thing out of the center. Once you get rid of that, then the wheels drop in. But again, really nice. Firestone wide oval up there, Firestone lettering here, and then the air pressure details and the size of the tire are on the sidewalls as well. It's got the wide wavy lines in here, which may or may not be too accurate to scale, but I remember when these tires came out, they replaced a lot of the Goodyear Polyglass GT tires that were in every 70s and 60s AMT kit. You know, like 66 Buick, 66, I don't know, Dodge, you know, 70 Plymouth Superbird, like those kind of things, all had Goodyear Polyglass tires. So when these came out, they were a wonderful alternative to that. Although in my kit here, it looks like in spots that the tires actually deformed somewhat. It's not a perfectly round tire on the edges, so I don't know what's going on there. And then you get some metal axles in here as well for in the back. So overall, again, these are really nice tires in both stock and custom. You can use them on different items. The choice is yours. Finally, we get to our decal sheet. And yes, this is actually the amount of decals we used to get in the 1990s kits. There was not much going on. Unlike today where you get a full decal sheet that's the bottom of the box and like loaded with all the instrument cluster decals and door latches and interior, you know, trim and 14 different license plates and all that. This is really what we got in this time period. There's not even anything if you wanted to build this as a dragster. So what we have is just a orange swoosh with blue swipes coming off it. We've got a Super Ford magazine license plate, which is actually pretty cool, and a Tennessee ATN 612. And I believe at the time this would have been the most recent Tennessee license plate, but since we're up in Canada, I couldn't tell you the history of Tennessee license plates unless I looked it up online or something. But yeah, this is it. 1, 2, 3, 4. Well, I hope you enjoyed that video where I got to show you what is inside AMT Ertl's 1957 Ford Fairlane 500. And it sure is quite a nice trim upgrade from the Ford Custom that we looked at before and the mid-range Del Rio. Of course, this is the top of the line, so expect the best from Ford. Now, if you enjoy this channel, again, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share with all your friends and family. And don't forget to check out that beginners series that I've made showing you what these skill levels mean and which one is best for you, as well as the basic introductory to tools and knowing which ones are good for you. Also, check out our selection of model car kits available now at www.monster-hobbies.ca under plastic models, and you'll find the car section. And there you'll find all the divisions laid out for you: GM, Ford, Chrysler, AMC, and many others. Real good to check it out. Click on those icons, check out the cars, and then use the promo code YouTube to get 10% off on your next purchase. Cool, isn't it? All right, everybody. Hope you enjoyed the video, and until next time, happy model building. We'll see you at Monster Hobbies, and enjoy the rest of the day. Thank you very much for sticking to the end of the video. Now we go all the way back to 1963 to Michigan, where we've got the original AMT 1957 Ford Fairlane 500 3-in-1 Trophy Series. Build this model stock, custom, or stylized. And as we see down here, we've got a bunch of the different features. There's stock, there's custom, and here is the raving beauty, the stylized 57 Ford. AMT Corporation Box 400, Troy, Michigan. You even get this, and that is a little light. It's actually a housing for a light, so that you can put a light bulb in there, some power underneath, shine a light. Shine on Harvest Moon. Yeah, so really cool. 57 was the most drastic styling change Ford had made since the introduction of its 49 models. A larger, more luxurious Ford, its length was accentuated even more by its long, sweeping side moldings. Ooh. Canted fins, curved belt line, and extremely wide grille gave the 57 Ford a pleasingly new look that was accepted by both young and old. This new look in the Ford became a challenge to the automobile customizer, and 57 Fords in a restyled and custom form soon began to appear at the custom auto shows from coast to coast. Its popularity with the automobile customizer continues to grow, both for radical and mild customizing. And it continued up in the 90s and even to today. All right, let's take a look at this beauty. So you can see the difference here on instruction sheets back in the day. It's the whole thing here, if you plan on painting your model, and it goes through different things here, sanding and all that. But then it says here it's got all the pieces on a board, maybe taped down. And painting your model is no longer the chore it has been in the past. With AMT's new fast-drying, hard-finishing lacquers, developed specifically for styrene plastic models, you can easily achieve beautiful translucent candy colors, just like the pros put on their trophy-winning full-size cars. If you prefer solid or metallic finishes, AMT offers 20 authentic automotive colors in lacquers to choose from. So this was back in the day when AMT had their own paint and glue line, which they don't have anymore, but that's what it's from. So here you can see the engine. So you've got the two different ones, the one with the supercharger, the big square pressure box. This must have been something that they designed for, Bonneville salt flat style racing. I believe that's what AMT might have been going from. I don't think they were trying to be inaccurate on purpose. I think this must have been something that they saw in a Bonneville car. It would make sense, being this is 63. So anyway, there's our engine going together here. I like how it's all in one thing. It's really nice. Here, I'm just going to slide this over instead of stopping the camera. Okay, so here's the assemblies. Let's see there. So we have our interior. We've got the seats going together and our dashboard and all that stuff. But okay, now look over here. You get this long console. Now, I had this in... They kept these parts up until the 70s, and then they disappeared somehow. But these actually have the crosshatch, like this pattern on them. The seats, the center console going all the way down here. You've got a television in two halves. You've got this custom steering wheel, which was like the airplane style that they were going for, the jet style in the 50s with customizers. So they take a full circular steering wheel and cut the tops and bottoms off like that, cap them. Really cool stuff back then. You got your gauges under here. Yeah, see, chrome gauges. And this shift lever. And then the doors, there's a custom bit here where you could have power windows. And it went over top of this window crank, just like on the real car it would have. It would have, governor. There's the hinges being put onto the body. So again, you can see the difference here, that in the 60s they actually had some really decent parts. So let's carry on. Now, in case you're wondering, there is some fluorescent pink blown in here, and I think somebody had a spray bomb explode somewhere with these instruction sheets being open. And again, when whoever had these before finished, I guess they did this with the pencil. So anyway, they also included back in the day sticker white walls. And you peeled these off of the backing paper and then stuck them on the sides of your tires. It says center on tire and press desired ring firmly in place. Press center section through tire and remove the extra ring. So really cool. And then here we've got our wheels going together. But what they have here is stock open wheels and Baby Moon hubcaps, which are not in the kit that we just saw. So those, again, were extra cool options, because in the 60s they didn't have mag wheels at the beginning, the 50s and the 60s. It was very much a get a hubcap and swap it from one car to another era. And then the baby moons, and they also had full hubcaps. They call these baldy caps on here. So yeah, either baby moons or baldies, but they would pop on in place instead. And that was their way back in the day of dressing up the wheels. Now, just moving the instructions across, I was right. Tie rod, chrome. Lower A-frame, chrome. So at one point it was chromed. So I'm not losing my mind. Anyway, and yeah, here, like I was saying, if you take the spindle and you flip it over, in A, you have a stock Ford, and in B, if it's upside down, you have the lowered front end. So again, some really cool stuff going on there. There's that front being put together. Here's your engine going in place, and then the wheels. So you got the plastic pins going up there, and that rotates around the brake drum. And in the back, you have the metal axle. Actually, no, wait. Wait, I am wrong. You have your choice of sticking the metal axle right through the front end if you do not want the posable wheels, or putting this on if you do. Here we have the basic assembly for our chassis carrying on. We've got our front end all together with the engine in place and posable wheels. Then we can put in our drive shaft in here and hook up our rear differential and axle, and then add in our shocks underneath. And you can see those nice baldy caps on the wheels. Again, some pretty cool stuff. Okay, so here we have the stock assembly. We've got our hood going on and all the grill pieces and everything, the battery dropping in. The master cylinder, did we see that in the kit on the parts tree? I don't remember. Anyway, we got a master cylinder there. We've got our taillight bezels and all that. So basically you're saying, well, Trevor, you're just showing me the stock. So what makes this any different from the newer kit from the 90s? Well, my friends, let's turn the page and find out. Now, this is where we actually see the difference in the original versus now. Here we have sunken aerials, which are on the chrome parts tree back in the day. We've got roof scoops, which was a trend back in that time. There's the spotlight mirrors that go into the holes on the door. We've got fender scoops on here. We've got antennas going down here. So you've got sunken aerials and antennas. 4 antennas all the way around. We have the Canadian grille. Okay, wait, it doesn't actually call it the Canadian grille, but it is Canadian grille. We have the tube grille, which was another option in behind. We have the dual headlight lens and bezel right here for your quad headlights. You got Nerf bars you can put on a rolled pan up front. It shows the rolled pan being molded in place here, but it's not. It was an actual extra feature. Under the hood's still the same. Back here you've got some extra scoops. You got side pipes going under the car, fender skirts. Here's the tail lamps. So what we have are the fin taillight bezels. You've got the flat tail lights. You can glue on the custom bullet into the flat tail lights. Or we've got these extension bezels here. Oh, that puts them underneath, which is cool. So you'd have your taillights, and then these are backup lights in here. And then we've got a rolled pan going underneath. We've got more Nerf bars and the license plate. So the rolled pan had the roll, and then it also had the license plate shroud molded on the top, which would sink into the depressed area for the license plate for the stock version. Again, really cool. And this is just the mild custom. There's more to come. Get ready. Now, before we actually get into the Styline parts, we're just going to take a little intermission here. Here's the custom display and accessory items. So you have this trophy with the crossed flags in here, and then there's a little chrome 57 Ford that glues on the top, and it's got a little base down there. Here are the display lights. So you got a front half and a rear half. A grain of wheat light bulb, which you have to supply, goes up in here, and there's a clear lens. They are floodlights. The floodlights can be built as display items, or they can be made to actually light up. Carefully cement lens to inside of front half. Fasten front and rear halves together. If you wish to have the floodlight light up, drilled 2 small holes near the bottom of the back half. Paint inside of both halves silver. Use your Molotow chrome pen now. That would really brighten it up. Insert wires of grain of wheat bulb available at any Hobbies store through holes. Assemble lights as described above. Attach wires to any pen light battery. So pen light battery, I believe, is 1.5 volts, like these batteries. Maybe that's 3 volts. I don't know, does it say? Probably. Anyway, yeah, basically these batteries, AA's. Or you could actually get 9-volt battery, maybe, put it in there. Okay, so that is cool. And here, somebody cut out the little piece there that actually goes on this stand. So I don't know what that would have looked like. And it's unfortunate because it actually chopped a piece out of the instructions. And then here for the restyling, it's showing using the different front ends and then filling it with putty, sanding it down, and adding on your paint. So again, this is stuff that I really wish would come back because it's amazing. You're gonna see in a minute here. Now, unfortunately, this panel got the chop, so we're just gonna have to try to imagine what this looked like over here. But what we have are these vertical headlight housings, and they're all notched so that they fit in here, and this notch would go over top here and that sort of thing. And there's a rolled pan down below. So that's one style. Okay, now here's the taillight extensions. Now this is an Edsel station wagon tail lamp design. And this I've seen in hot rod magazines from the 50s. They use it on the Thunderbirds. So I really wish these parts would come back because it's an awesome boomerang tail lamp that's just sitting there. You can't use it in any capacity because you're missing these pieces that made it work. So please, AMT, open up those channels and bring this back. So there's that rolled pan. You can see it's also got the license plate frame in there, and it's all designed to fit in here, come out beautifully. So if we go down the page, this is showing, you put this on the front, and then this is how you finish dressing it up, right? So there's the front end all sculpted into shape here, and then you insert your tube grill down in here, or maybe the Canadian grill if you want. And then you've got these quad headlight bezels that are vertical, like the later Buicks and Pontiacs of the 60s, later 60s. And then those clear lenses that are still on that clear parts tree, those popped into here. So again, really cool stylized front end. Then on the back, it doesn't say that these are Edsel ones, but they are Edsel ones if you look it up. So you've got that insert that goes in. So there's the backing plate extension. And then, are these chrome? It does not say. But anyway, so these go in. And then that's your Edsel boomerang tail lamp, the outer part of the Edsel tail lamp. In the inner circle here, because that tail lamp's going to come in and go like that, right? This was either a mesh grill, and if you got the more dressy Edsel wagon, over on this side was a backup lamp. So again, it's really cool stuff. I wish it was still out there. There's your license plate going into the shroud, and then your Nerf bars are gluing in on the rolled pan down there. But wait, there's more. If we go over here with the radicalized styling, now we get a different front extension pan with quad headlights and this big mouthy grill, and that'll pop on there. And then on the back, we've got this extension that's got the holes for the bullet tail lamps. And this really brings the car, actually, this is sort of styled like 62 Chrysler. Or, Dodge or one of those. But you can see it's got the little fin extension up here, which caps this off and rounds it into that rear pan. Again, nice rolled pan under here for the license plate to fit in. A little bit of a pancake following the belt line along the side of the car. Amazing. And now when you add the chrome in, you get these dual headlights. It looks like there's a mesh grill going in here, but I'm not sure. They don't really point it out. Unless it's molded into this, which could be. But you get this bar grill extension that pops into place. And then down here you get bullet tail lamps. You can have 4 red in here, or 1 red and 1 clear as a backup. And then Nerf bars that wrap around the Corvette style. And then the license plate in here. So again, you know, how many of you have built these stylized Fords? Let me know in the comments down below. And how many of you would love to build it again if AMT opened up the ports in that mold? Count me in as one. You got my vote. And to really top off these model kits back in the day, you always ended up getting custom hints by George Barris in the AMT kits. George Barris, the man himself, the king of customizers. George Barris presents customizing ideas for your model that are typical of the latest nationwide trends and employing the same methods used by the top custom shops on full-size cars. Mr. Barris, AMT's consultant on customizing, is known as California's king of the customizers. He is the man that put K in custom. As a result of his innovations in craftsmanship in metal, shown here is a sampling of the many variations possible by using components from current AMT kits to build customs in miniature with the professional touch. All right, so now some of these custom parts are still out there on some of the kits that Round 2 are bringing out, so you have to watch for them. And if not, there are some other parts you could substitute in here, so there you go. Now check this out. For all-out competition, use the supercharger fuel injectors and blower drive from the 1949 Ford kit. The exhaust stacks from the 49 are also used. The mag wheels, slicks, and decals from the 57 Chevy kit are used, so keep that in mind. Cement the 2 fender scoops from this kit together to make an air scoop. Trim the bottom flat and cement to the fuel injectors. So this is coming out of the 49 Ford kit. The wheels are from the 57 Chevy. Now they might have changed, but I believe you could probably get the 55 Chevy wheels in here. That's also the exhaust from the 49 Ford. So again, lots of cool stuff. Here are 2 custom treatments for the 57 Ford wheels. In Sketch A, the wheel disc from the 50 Ford kit is used to dress up the wheel. Now this doesn't exist anymore, but it would be cool to bring it back. In Sketch B, the large baldy cap from the 36 Ford kit is used, which again is not there. However, in some of these they show that you could use the wire wheels from the 32 Ford, you could use the Pontiac wheels from the 62 Pontiacs, or later. The tooth grill from the 57 Chevy kit is trimmed and inserted between the vertical headlights on this Ford front end to give the appearance of added width. So there's all those little teeth. Now this grill exists there's 2 57 Chevys from AMT. This is in the older one that has the trim molded on the side but doesn't have the relief in the side from the 57. You know, the aluminum thing that pops in there. Okay, and here, the 2 sketches above illustrate a couple of ideas for the headlights on your Ford. In Sketch A, the headlight rims and lenses from the 57 T-Bird are used in place of the stock Ford lights. So this makes them a little flatter so they're not sticking way out like the Ford ones do. And I believe that these actually kick up a little at the front to give you a bit of a ridge up there. Okay, and then in B, Sketch B, the Lucas lights from the 57 Chev kit add a distinctive touch to the front of the Ford. So the Lucas ones have little pins in the center of them. But again, all these great ideas that are out there that if AMT just opened up some of the chambers on their earlier kits, you would actually see these parts come back and you could actually use them on this Ford. Take a look at this. Printed in USA, Form T1-157, AMT Corporation, 1962. So again, really cool model, and I wish it would come back. And I'm glad that you stuck with me to the end, pardon me, to see this in play. And again, like I say, don't forget to like, subscribe, and if you enjoyed this channel, why not click the join button and support me in that way? I'd really appreciate it, and it would add to some extra income so that I could get some new kits and review stuff on this channel. Till next time, everyone, happy model building. We'll see you in the next video.